really how I got here was from visions that I had in my ceremonies, but I first want to talk about what this medicine even is. During the ayahuasca ceremony, your brain undergoes significant changes in neural activity and connection. Regions of the brain that are responsible for introspection, emotion, perception, all of those areas become highly active. And then that leads to profound alterations in consciousness, in perception of time, and also helps you with shedding your ego. And in my first ceremony, I saw my connection to Abraham, who is my business partner, and Saul, who is our shaman. In my second ceremony, I had a lot of visions from the future, which would really be what I would classify as possible realities. And I will say that there is a commonality between almost every single person that comes and has this experience about love.
Hi, welcome to the first official episode of The Way of the Heart. Today's conversation is with Angie. She is the co-founder of a spiritual retreat center in Peru, working with plant medicine. She also co-owns a tour company in Peru as well, providing cultural immersive experiences, exploring ancient ruins and archaeological sites, while promoting sustainable tourism practices. Angie's life story is incredibly interesting and inspiring, and it's truly an honor for me to have her in the podcast today. Please enjoy this conversation. Angie, welcome to The Way of the Heart.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. In all transparency, for whoever is tuning in and listening, this is the second try recording this conversation with Angie because I was having technical difficulties yesterday, and Angie was very flexible and patient and generous with her time, and we were able to reschedule. So here we are again, and I am confident that today is going to go smoothly and technology is going to be on our side. So welcome.
I think so too.
I am honored. Yesterday I told you this, but I am honored you're officially the first guest in the podcast, and I have admired your journey. I think that you embody following the heart fully. You have been following your heart, and you have been doing that for a long time at this point. And I think that it would be a gift for all of us to hear your story and what you are doing. So
thank you so much.
Thank you.
I just want to say it is a pleasure for me to speak with you and an honor. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to utilize your platform to share my voice. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Okay, so to start, I would love to hear about your background, meaning your experiences, the experiences that have shaped you into the person that you are today. I was sharing before that I believe that our childhood really shapes or directs in some way or in a big way the things that we do today and the values that we really embody and that we actively work on as adults, if we have, of course, a certain level of self-awareness and, connection with our childhood. So I think I would love to begin there. What was your childhood like? Where were you born? And yeah, like a little bit of that background.
Sure. So I have a pretty interesting background. I was born and raised in Virginia Beach, Virginia. It's a military town. My father was a lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy, and my mom was a chef. She had her own catering business when I was really young, and then when in my school years, she was working at the private school. It was a Catholic school that I went to, managing the cafeteria food program. And my parents, it was a pretty average middle-class upbringing, very strict household. Like I mentioned, I went to Catholic school. But perhaps the most interesting part of my childhood and something that has really impacted me forever is the fact that I was diagnosed with a rare bone disorder at the age of 11. It's called severe torsional misalignment syndrome, also known as miserable malalignment syndrome. And up until 11 years old, I had a lot of accidents. I was constantly spraining my ankles, breaking my legs, dislocating my joints, and just a lot of really random, weird things that would happen to me. My parents thought that I was accident prone. They used to call me Calamity Jane. And it wasn't until I was 11 years old that a doctor was like, there's a pattern here. There's something that's not right. You shouldn't have been having so many accidents at 11 years old. So they did a CAT scan or MRI. I can't remember. It was a long time ago. But basically they ran some tests on me and they saw that my bones were crooked. My tibias and my fibulas were twisting. So my feet were growing backwards, actually. By the age of 11, they were at a 45-degree angle with my knees pointing forward. And then by the age of 14, when I could have my first surgery, because they couldn't operate on me at the age of 11, my growth plates were wide open and they didn't want to stunt my growth. But by the age of 14, when I was having my first operation, my feet were in a 180-degree line with my knees pointing forward. Actually, slightly knock-kneed because my tibias and my fibulas were twisted. Really, really crazy, really bizarre. But I also have issues with joints throughout my body, the cartilage and ligaments. I don't know, it's very bizarre. So
Was it
as
painful?
an adult, it wasn't painful, the actual growth of my bones, but the accidents that would happen were always painful. Every time that I would sprain an ankle, it was because I was not aligned properly. Miserable malalignment syndrome. So basically I had 9 surgeries between the ages of 14 and 21. And then I've had 2 other surgeries, the most recent being in 2022. And before that, 2018. So I've had quite a bit of surgeries, which have included me being in a wheelchair or a scooter or a walker for a good portion of my life. And that has impacted me in a way that I think I care a little bit extra about my health compared to the average person. I'm very particular about my diet because I try to avoid inflammatory foods. So I've been vegetarian now for the past 7 years, mostly vegan, but I was vegan for 2.5 years, strict vegan. But up until about 3 or 4 months ago, I started incorporating a little bit of eggs because my body told me that this is what I need. So I'm just listening and seeing what feels good. But I'm mostly vegan, I would say, because it's anti-inflammatory and better for, I have arthritis as a result of my bone disorder.
So this is a syndrome that is still with you. Is this something that is going to be with you, or was this something that was healed? Or
I hope I hope that there are no more surgeries in my future. The last 2 surgeries that I had included removing the joint where my big toe is, where the big toe meets the metatarsal. They removed the joint and fused those bones together because I had bones spurring all around the joints. I had no cartilage left. It was extremely painful to walk. And all the bones in my feet started growing crooked because once they moved, basically since the first surgery, I never anticipated having additional surgeries. But once they would fix one thing, it was like the domino effect. Something else would go wrong. So once they moved my feet from being in a 180-degree line to being, straightforward as they should be, I was walking only on the insides of my feet, for instance. Mm-hmm. So all the bones in my feet were growing crooked. I was putting all the pressure on the inside. I grew full bunions in 3 years as a teenager. Mm-hmm. Bunions actually take 25 to 30 years to fully develop in women, mainly from wearing poor footwear, right? Like heels. Which I can never wear again. I'm not sad about it. But there's, this is something that has affected me for my whole life and will affect me for the rest of my life. But I just have to be careful about how I eat, because that does affect, food is medicine. And I have to wear very comfortable shoes. Like, it just is what it is. I'm used to it at this point. I'm 38 years old, and this has been literally my entire life that I've been dealing with this.
Wow. I can imagine I cannot imagine, I should say, how much this shaped who you are today. And I can't help but think about your trajectory and what you do today. So before we actually go a little bit deeper into what you're doing today, I will just give a little bit of a hint. You are a co-owner of a spiritual retreat center. And I'm thinking, did you have any type of spiritual practice at this age when this started, like between 11 and 14? Or was this something that was very unfamiliar to you? Or was it at this time that maybe you started to have this connection with something bigger than just, this realm?
As a child, I was religious because my parents are religious. They are Roman Catholic. I went to Catholic school. So that is what I was taught growing up, but I shied away from that as a teenager. In my late teens, I lost complete faith for a while because it really, for me personally, and I'm not judging anyone who is religious, or, we're all entitled to have our own beliefs. But that particular belief system doesn't really fit with my lifestyle. I identify as queer and mostly lesbian. I've pretty much only dated women for most of my life, but the Catholic religion made me hate myself for a period of time. I thought that I was going to go to hell, and I thought that I was a bad person, and I couldn't change who I am. And I struggled with my sexuality and just myself in general because of the religion. So it therefore made me lose all faith in everything. And it wasn't until I had sacred plant medicine experiences that everything about my perception of the world, the meaning of life, and our existence changed. And now I am very spiritual. I believe that we're all divine beings. We're all part of what God is. And I think that God is just a word. It can also be the creator. It can be the universe. It can be love. They're all synonymous to me. But I am very in tune with the divinities within me. And I'm very spiritual now. But it's been a roller coaster in my life.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that maybe this would be something that will resonate with a lot of people. This pain, I think, is very relevant and very alive in many of us. Growing up, for all of us, it has manifested in different ways, but I think this is something that is very, very, very alive in our modern society. So thank you so much for saying that. So all of this has taken you to a beautiful place where you are today. So you are currently located in Peru. And
I live in Cusco, Peru.
In Cusco, Peru. So I understand that you first went to Peru in 2017. Am I getting that right? And you fell in love with the country. Okay.
Yeah, I came in 2018 just to tour the country for a couple weeks. And as soon as I arrived in Cusco, I fell in love. I was like, I want to live here one day. And I didn't really realize that would actually come true. But I consider myself a well-traveled person. I've been to a lot of countries, over 20 countries. I don't know exactly how many. But I have never really felt the way that I feel about Peru with any other place that I've been to. And that's why I'm here. But it really came to me as a message when I did ayahuasca the following year in 2019. I had visions of my life here. I knew that I was going to be at least directing retreats. I didn't know about the tour company that I co-own now. That kind of fell into place. But yeah, it's pretty incredible. It just, there was something about this country. I think it's a soul connection that called me here. It almost felt familiar the first time that I came here. Like I just felt very comfortable immediately. And in my opinion, I think it is one of the most beautiful countries in the world as far as culture, history, the food, the nature, everything. Everything about this culture is just so beautiful to me. And I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to be living here and being a part of it. And now I am La Gringa Cusqueña, the American Cusco girl, and I'm loving life. It's been a journey.
I love, because I can feel the fulfillment in your soul right now, as you share about how you feel where you are located. And just to have to understand, so this is in 2018. Was this the first ceremony that basically opened you up to, there's something else? So basically, this started your journey into a spiritual growth and spiritual path. Was this it?
I would say. So 2018 is when I came and just toured the country. 2019, I came back with a group of 7 people, 6 other girls besides myself. And we did 3 ayahuasca ceremonies. And that changed everything about my beliefs. But I would say that I started to become a little bit more spiritual the year before. Probably around the time that I came just to tour, I started being like, okay, maybe I'm not atheist. Because I really was affected by religion in a negative way that it made me think there was nothing else out there. And then I started to open my mind a little bit. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I'm going to take it back. It was probably around 2017 when I learned what ayahuasca was that I started to discover my spiritual path. But it was in 2019 when I experienced ayahuasca that everything changed. I believe, these are my own personal beliefs, but we all have our own realities and no one is right and no one is wrong. So I'm just going to say what my reality is as if it's fact, because to me it feels like a fact. We are all God experiencing itself through our own individual consciousness. I'm going to say that again. We are God experiencing itself through our own individual consciousness. And all of our consciousness goes into one collective bank of consciousness. That's the source. That's what God is. And something that I like to talk to people about to kind of get their wheels turning when describing this is that our bodies are made up of 50 to 75 trillion cells. Every single one of those cells, what is it made up of? It's got a cell wall, cytoplasm, a nucleus, ribosomes, all of these different things that make up a cell. It is its own little living entity. And then you go into the cell and all of those parts that make up the cell are made up of something else. And it goes on and on and on. The atomic level, the subatomic particles. I mean, I'm not going to say all the different, scientific names, but it goes on infinitely. It never stops. And in the same sense, we are these humans on Earth, in our solar system, revolving around our one star, the sun, in our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy that has trillions of stars, out of over 200 trillion observable galaxies in our one observable universe. We are so tiny. We are just a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of what existence is, of what the source is. But we all are part of it. And outside of this universe, again, my personal thoughts is that there's parallel universes with infinite realities. There's infinite versions of Natalia. There's infinite versions of Angie. And in every single moment and every single day, we have a different choice of which way we're going to go. And if we think about, I could do this right now, or I could do this right now, you choose one direction, right? Well, the other thought still splits off into a parallel universe that we are living also. It all exists. Anything that can exist does exist, if not in this lifetime, in a parallel lifetime. And all of that, everything that exists is what the source is. We are just merely the cells of God, just like we are the God of our cells. These are just things that I was blown away by, these feelings of knowing what our existence is really about. I mean, not really like all of it, but just to have a little tidbit of understanding that we're just a part of Source experiencing itself.
I cannot stop smiling because even though you said this is my reality and there's no right and wrong, and I also resonate with that, I do resonate with what you are describing as God and what this experience is, like this life is, and it goes beyond this human body. So I am just like, my heart is like smiling. So my face is just reflecting that. So thank you so much for that beautiful, beautiful description. And
of course,
something that was that I caught in what you explained is that this, what is the word that I'm looking for? This curiosity that you started to have for spirituality was when you learned about ayahuasca. So you didn't even do ayahuasca yet to begin this journey in a way, the spiritual journey. But I'm thinking, well, it was still the plant that called you into this journey, because it was 100%. When you started to get curious about it and question, oh, okay, is there something else? It was through the plant, just finding more about it. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I felt called to the medicine. Of course, I was a little scared, which I now, after speaking to so many people and bringing people here to experience the medicine for themselves, I see that that's a pretty average reaction, is to feel nervous or scared, because it is life-changing. And in order to delve into this medicine, you have to be prepared for your entire life to change.
This is a good place to mention what it is that you do. So you are in Peru and you have two sides to your company. One, you offer travel, like tourism. And then the other one is a spiritual center offering ceremony, spiritual ceremony, and plant medicine. So how did this begin? How did you get there?
Well, first I'm going to talk about what this medicine is, because how I got here was from visions that I had in my ceremonies. But I first want to talk about what this medicine even is for the listeners who don't know. So ayahuasca is a sacred plant medicine that has been used for thousands of years by the indigenous people in the Amazon rainforest. So it is primarily in Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, Brazil. These are the main countries, but Peru is obviously the best. Just kidding. So ayahuasca, it is two plants that come from the Amazon rainforest, as I mentioned. The Banisteriopsis caapi vine, that contains MAOIs. And then there's the Psychotria viridis plant, which has DMT, dimethyltryptamine. That's the psychoactive compound. Basically, the combination of DMT and the MAOIs from the Banisteriopsis caapi vine allow the DMT to be orally active. So what this does, during the ayahuasca ceremony, your brain undergoes significant changes in neural activity and connection. Regions of the brain that are responsible for introspection, emotion, perception, all of those areas become highly active. And then that leads to profound alterations in consciousness, in perception of time, and also helps you with shedding your ego, which can be uncomfortable, but it is worth it. Essentially, in order to do this medicine, there is a dieta there is a preparation that you need to put yourself through physically at least 2 weeks before your first ceremony. So it is a pretty physically demanding dieta that you have to do. Basically, you have to eliminate garlic from your diet. That's one of the most important things, because garlic, I'm sure you've heard that garlic detracts vampires, right? And like evil spirits. Well,
Yeah.
there's a lot of truth to that. It detracts spirits in general, including the good spirits. And when you drink this sacred medicine, you're drinking plant spirit juice. So by eating garlic, it is eliminating access to the spirit realm. So it's very important that at least 2 weeks before the first ceremony, no garlic, no red meat, no pork, no caffeine, no drugs, no alcohol. As we get closer to the ceremonies, we go more strict with the dieta. And also it's important to mention that every single retreat center will have their own dieta. We start all of our clients with Wachuma, which is a different plant medicine. It is a cactus plant medicine that I'll talk about in a moment. But that medicine is to cleanse you completely and harmonize your body to allow for a more profound ayahuasca experience. So our dieta is not quite as strict, because our dieta is more geared towards doing that first Wachuma ceremony, which is actually better, because a lot of times people that are doing the dieta for ayahuasca, doing ayahuasca first, it can be overwhelming. And the first ceremony really just almost is a wash, because it really goes towards just cleansing you and doing the physical work on you. So it's better to start with Wachuma. At least that's what the messages that our shaman has received from the spirit realm. They have made it a clear message. Everyone should start with Wachuma. So that's the message he received, and that's the protocol that we work with in our retreats. We start everyone with Wachuma. I'm going to talk about that a little bit, actually. Wachuma, also known as San Pedro, it is a cactus plant medicine that comes from the Andes Mountains. Also, it has been used for thousands of years. Over 4,000 years, these medicines have been used. So this is pre-Inca, because the Inca civilization was only 500 years ago or so. That was a question you asked me yesterday. But yeah, this is way pre-Inca. This is thousands of years that this medicine has been used. Wachuma is a much softer experience. It's not quite as visionary. For some people, it can be a visionary experience, but it is more of a heart opener. Like I said, it's really to cleanse you and to heal you in ways that better prepare you for ayahuasca, because ayahuasca is one of the most profound medicines on earth. It's very strong. It is a psychedelic, so you can have visions. Not everyone has visions, but I would say probably 80% of people have visions with ayahuasca.
Okay.
But there's other people that never have visions on ayahuasca. It depends on the person, and the medicine doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you need. So sometimes people are not meant to see visions. They're only meant to have the feelings, because they're not ready for the visions. So for those of you who are hoping to just have some cool psychedelic trip, it's not like that at all. This is like soul work that you're doing.
And you mentioned from your first ceremony, you actually did 3 ceremonies. So what is usually the protocol? Is it multiple ceremonies, including the Wachuma, or is it 3 ayahuasca ceremonies, or how does that really work? What is usually the procedure?
That's a great question. So I think a lot of other retreat centers operate in the way that people can choose how many ceremonies they want to do. It is recommended to do multiple ceremonies. Doing one ceremony is scratching the surface. One ceremony, whether it's ayahuasca or Wachuma, is just for cleansing. It's after the physical body is cleansed that you are able to dive in emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So you have to have multiple ceremonies if you want it to be effective. But no one has to do anything, right? Like, you can come here and do one ceremony, but it's just going to scratch the surface, really. I did come here and do 3 ceremonies the very first time. And in my first ceremony, I saw my connection to Abraham, who is my business partner, and Saul, who is our shaman. I saw that they are my brothers and that I have worked with them and been with them in many lifetimes. And I just felt this really intense connection to them both, especially Abraham. Like at one point in that ceremony, I asked him to help me stand up, and we were standing and I was like, can you hug me? And he hugged me, and I saw bright blue lightning surrounding us, like electric blue lightning. And I just knew, I was like, this is our spiritual connection. It was wild. We've been together way longer than just this lifetime. And it felt like that as soon as I met him. I was like, I love this man. He's my brother. Like we were calling each other hermano and hermana before I ever had those visions and realizing like, oh, he's my brother in spirit. In my second ceremony, I had a lot of visions from the future, which would really be what I would classify as possible realities, right? I saw things that didn't end up happening, and I saw other things that did end up happening, such as my life here in Peru. I envisioned myself working with Abraham and Saul. I envisioned myself directing retreats and my life here in Peru. And it looks differently than I thought it would, to be honest. I had a partner and I thought that we would have a baby and that we were going to move to Peru together. And it didn't end up happening that way. And it's okay. I'm very trusting of the path that the divinities put me on. And I know that everything happens for a reason. But I did see some other realities that probably branched off and happened in parallel universes. Actually, I definitely think they still happened. But I'm living out a different path that is excellent for me. I did see my life in Peru. I saw it being very fulfilling and beautiful. And it is so far. It's been about 1.5 years that I've been here. And it has been just amazing. The best thing I could have ever done for myself. Following my heart.
So, following your heart. And on that topic, who do you recommend to have this type of ceremony?
The people that I would recommend to have this experience is anyone who wants to do really deep soul work. Anyone who maybe feels stuck or like they're unclear about their path. Anyone who is experiencing depression, anxiety, these things. It is ourselves that create these ailments. It is something within us. It is past trauma. It could even be generational trauma that we inherited. It could be work from past lives that are not necessarily a blood-related inheritance, but rather something from a past lifetime that came to us that we have to experience to learn. I believe that Earth is a school for souls to learn difficult lessons. Life is supposed to be about challenges. I like to compare it to a video game, right? Like you're going to keep having to replay the same level until you pass it. Well, it's the same thing in life. God is going to give us the same lesson in different formats until we learn the lesson. But anyone who is looking to improve their life, to heal, those are the people that should be doing this medicine. There are some people that should avoid this medicine, I will say, also, since we're talking about who should do this. The people who should not do this, people who are pregnant or breastfeeding, certain psychological disorders, it could be dangerous, especially part of the dieta, part of the preparation to do this medicine, you have to stop taking prescription medicine of all kind for 2 weeks. So if someone is not willing to get off of their medicine for depression or any type of mental illness, they cannot do the medicine because physiologically the heart rate and blood pressure increases, and it can just be very dangerous.
So it is advisable for people that want to have this experience to have maybe a medical checkup, or like to have, the green light by their physician, and especially if it's
always recommended.
Okay.
Yeah, it's recommended to go and get a general checkup, see how the heart rate and blood pressure are in particular, because if that is already elevated without medication, it could be dangerous to do the medicine. I will say another thing. Saul does what is called a Coca leaf reading. He has an extreme connection to the spirit realm, and shamans with this connection are able to utilize this sacred tool, the Coca leaf, to speak to the spirit realm on behalf of a participant. For instance, let's say that you were getting a Coca leaf reading from Saul. He will take a leaf that represents you and place it at the top, and then he takes a handful of leaves and drops them. And depending on the shape, the color, the size, and the pattern in which they fall, it tells a whole story. He starts the session by asking for your name, your date of birth, and your place of birth. And that information, just like astrology, connects you to the spirit realm. And he is merely a translator for the messages that the spirits show him with the leaves. And this is something that's been passed down generation to generation. And our shaman has had shamanism in his bloodline for many generations. His grandmother was a shaman, and it's just been something that's in his blood. And he gained his mystic abilities at the age of 8. So he is a very special man. He's now in his 40s. He spent, at the age of 8, his mom passed away, and he was able to communicate with her spirit for 3 months, which taught him at a very young age about how energy just transmutes, and that the spirit realm is actually right here with us. You know that we can only see 1% of the visible light spectrum? So 99% of the world around us is invisible. Wow. And that's where the spirits are. They're right here with us. They're always around us, which is crazy to think about. But he speaks to basically your angels, your spirit guides, whatever it is that's protecting you, that gives him information about you. And he talks about health, family, love, career, energy, and spirituality. He covers all these different aspects of your life. And then at the end of that, you can ask any questions and have guidance. But part of our retreats, before every single ceremony, he does a coca leaf reading for every single participant. And this tells him exactly what the dose is that person needs and what medicine. Because actually, and this is something that separates us from the rest of the other retreat centers, typically, if you go to an ayahuasca retreat here in Peru, everyone gets the same dose, everyone gets the same medicine. And maybe halfway through the night, if you feel like you want more medicine, you can go back up and have another cup. That's not how we roll. That's not how we operate at all. Because Saul has a very special gift where he sees from the spirits what medicine and what dose you need. We work with 5 different types of Wachuma and 5 different types of ayahuasca. For ayahuasca, there's 2 eyes, 4 eyes, 6 eyes, 8 eyes. And then there's a male plant, because ayahuasca is a female plant. There's a male equivalent called ayaruna. And ayaruna is actually the most strong medicine. Typically, if someone in their coca leaf reading, if they get the message that they need ayaruna, it's a combination with 6 eyes or 8 eyes, or, it will be a combination of multiple medicines in one dose. But he receives message from spirit about exactly what type of medicine, because we're all different people. We all have different things that we need to heal. So it only makes sense that we would have different type of medicine and different doses for each person. With Wachuma, there's 5 different types of plants. I'm calling it Wachuma, but really there's only one Wachuma. There's Wachuma, and then there's 4 other cactus that we work with. Sabila del Desierto, Echinopsis pachanoi, Echinopsis peruvian, and La Planta de los Dioses. So there's 5 different cactus medicines and 5 different ayahuascas. And depending on what the coca leaves tell Saul, that's what the medicine is that you get. And it's very personalized for every single person.
This is fascinating to me. And so you said that Saul learned this. It was passed on from generations. Mm-hmm. So what is that background? Because I know you mentioned before the Incas and the pre-Inca civilization. Is that, is Saul's lineage connected to that, or this is something different?
Yes, so he does have Quechua blood. So a little bit of Inca history. There were only actually 14 Incas. Only 14. The Inca was the ruler. The people, the common people, were called Quechua. So Saul is Quechua. Yes, he has Inca heritage, but he was not part of the royalty, so he has Quechua background. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense, and I had no idea. And this actually is something that I learned recently about native community in Colombia as well. I used to call them the Mamos, and they're in Santa Marta in El Tayrona. And I used to call them Mamos. And it turns out that they're Kogis. There's three types of groups, and today only one or two of them exist. And actually, I think one of them is Incas and Kogis. And Mamos were similar to what you're explaining about the Incas. They were just the top leaders. They were the wise ones, they call them. So this is really interesting. I had no idea that's what the Incas were. So Quechuas were the lay people, right?
Yes, Quechua. So he is Quechua, yes. Something else I'll say about Saul is he was only serving the local community until I came along. He had only ever worked with one other tourist 2 years before me, one guy from Sri Lanka that came here and did a few ceremonies with him as well. And it wasn't until I asked Abraham, hey, can you organize a retreat for me and 6 other girls? That was Saul's first time doing a group ceremony for tourists. He's always served the local community. And he has also never held a traditional job. So like I said, at the age of 8, that's when he had an experience with his mother in the spirit realm for a few months. At the age of 10, he started being able to communicate with nature, plants and animals. And then all through his teenage years, he tried all the different plant medicines. And then he became a shaman by 18. And that was a whole process. I can't go into detail about that because I don't want to misspeak. But it was a vigorous training and preparation to this life that he was going to lead as a spiritual master. He actually prefers to be called spiritual master, not shaman. He thinks that the word shaman is almost like egotistical. So he just prefers to be called a spiritual master.
A spiritual master.
He won't ever call himself a shaman. But to what we know, for people to lead ceremonies, they're considered shamans. So I just always say shaman out of ease and people being able to recognize what his role is. But he has always worked with plant medicine. And ayahuasca and Wachuma are the 2 medicines that he is an expert at working with. And in over 20 years of being a spiritual master, he's never had anyone that has had to go to the hospital or anyone that has died, which has happened in other retreat centers. This medicine has the potential to be dangerous. And that's why it's so important to do it with someone who is a trusted source. I personally would not do the medicine with anybody else. Now that I know the connection that I have to Saul and how sacred of an experience the medicine is, I wouldn't want to do it from, a center that I didn't know where they sourced their medicine. I don't know what type of medicine it is or anything like that. Another thing is that we only offer private experiences. So most retreat centers are groups of 30 to 40 people in a room. And something else for listeners who have never heard anything about this medicine, something that you might not know, is that part of the process is purging, diarrhea, nausea, and vomiting. That is a very normal part of this. So if you can imagine being in a room of 30 people that are throwing up into a bucket next to them and all the distractions of noise all around you, and I personally can't imagine that experience. We can host up to 12 people. We will not do more than 12 people in a room. And at this point, because we were doing group retreats for a period of time. At this point, we have decided to only do private groups. So you could bring 10 other people if you want, but we're really gearing more towards private experiences because the energy that you can absorb can also be dangerous. You know, you are purging toxicity from your body. And so if you think about our aura and our energy field and the contamination that can happen from being in the same environment as other people who are releasing really heavy, dark things, it can be dangerous, in my opinion. So we keep it to people assembling their own groups. We have a lot of people come, just 1 or 2 people. But it is a completely private, exclusive experience for anyone that wants to bring their own group or come by themselves.
And it sounds that Saul is really interested in the healing aspect of it, not so much like the commercial side. And I say this, and this is an assumption that I'm having because he only worked with the local people. So I'm thinking, you know, one thing that always becomes just clear to me is that no matter where we are as human beings, we all have our suffering and we all have those things that we want to heal. So I'm just thinking about this because, you know, I think of someone in Cusco or someone like in a small town, perhaps where Saul could come from. And in my point of view of the world, I wish I lived in a small town where, you know, things were like, you know, slow pace and whatever. And I feel like I idealize that type of living because everything will be okay. But then there's also, you know, the human experience is not going to go anywhere. It's still there. There's still suffering. And I'm bringing it back to Saul used to help the locals in this way because there's also suffering there in many different ways and forms. So I think that is beautiful, you know, that you care so much about the experience, that you are treating this as what is supposed to be sacred, right? And I have a couple more questions about the experience itself because I have no idea about anything. So what is the experience itself? If you could really describe it now that you have had, you know, you've had those visions and you've had the understanding of, okay, I am a cell in this universe. How did that come up for you? Like, was it a thought? It was a vision? And like, how did you come into this realization?
Okay, so I want to actually, I will answer this question, but I want to retract a little bit. First thing, you said, I wish that I could live in a small town because I think it would be small. If you wished it and you wanted it, you could make it happen. I just want to say that. Anything is possible. And if you actually have thought about that, it exists somewhere else. So if you want to move, you can. I just want to say that. Second point, we were talking about Saul and how he serves the local communities. I want to emphasize that while he does these ceremonies, these sacred plant medicine ceremonies, that's just a fraction of what he does for the local community. He gives a lot of coca leaf readings, actually, because these coca leaf readings are very strong insights straight from the spirit realm. So he has a lot of people that come to him on a daily basis to receive insights. They may come to him with a problem. And I mean, it's kind of like going to a psychic, except for it's spiritual guidance. I don't know. It's some people might hear this and think like, that sounds crazy. I wouldn't trust a guy just dropping some leaves and telling me my story. But I will say that I have witnessed upwards of, I don't know, 50 to 75 different coca leaf readings. And everyone is always like mind blown at the specificity of what he says related to their lives. So it's just really interesting. I believe it personally because I met Saul the year before I came to do ayahuasca, and he gave myself and 3 other people coca leaf readings, which is how I knew that he was the exact person that I wanted to do these ceremonies with, because I trusted him because of the things that he told me based on what the spirits were telling him. It was wild. He also does a lot of offerings. So if someone feels that they have like bad energy in their house, or if they're starting a new business and they want to do an offering. Also in the month of August, that's the holy month of Pachamama, Mother Earth. So he does a lot of offerings for the locals throughout that entire month. Probably every day of August, he's busy doing offerings. So he does a lot more than just doing ceremonies. He also can guide people on just holistic approaches at healing, like sulfur baths to clear negative energy. Cold showers. Like he a lot of times recommends doing some type of hydrotherapy, using different plants that are not psychedelic, just herbs and healing plants in nature. So he is not just working with psychedelic medicine, but he's working with nature in general to serve the locals. So he's just a holistic healer, really. Mm-hmm. Now back to what your question was. In my third ceremony, I actually received a lot of insights about my purpose, to love, to create, to inspire, to motivate. Those things came up for me very strongly. Love, create, motivate, inspire. I received my insights as what we call downloads. It just came to me as like a knowing. Like it was like a thought or a belief put in my brain and carved in there, tattooed on my brain. That's how it feels. Like it is just a strong thought or belief that just comes. And that's what a lot of doing these plant medicine ceremonies is. And I will say that there is a commonality between almost every single person that comes and has this experience about love. I personally think like love is what the source is. Like the source is love. I call it God sometimes, but I think it's love. And I think that every decision that we make in life is rooted in either love or in fear. My messages just came very, very strongly about my purpose to be vulnerable, to share my story, because I do have a very interesting story, to inspire people with my story and show people like you can overcome anything. And anything that you put your mind to can become a reality. Anything that you think can happen. The mind is way more powerful than most people realize. Do you know what epigenetics is? Are you familiar with the term epigenetics? Yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Epigenetics is, we all have this DNA, right? This genetic code, but everything has an on and an off switch. Nothing is permanently fixed. We can change anything, no matter what people think. We have the ability to change anything about our lives. It just involves changing the environment. And the environment doesn't necessarily mean the physical environment, like the place, although oftentimes that can be what it means. But the environment is everything. It's all encompassing. It is the energy that we surround ourselves with. It is the food that we are eating, aka medicine. It is the information that we're intaking. All of that is our environment. And depending on what our environment is going to dictate what that genetic code is. When people say like, oh, but it's in my genes, like all my family has had heart disease or cancer, and so I'm probably going to get it. Well, you know what? If you keep telling yourself that, you're right. You're probably going to get it, because that's the belief system that you hold. And it is in the genetic code to make that a reality. But you can also change things so that way it doesn't happen. It's just about manipulating the code.
Right. Yeah. And that makes me think of in Buddhism, there is a teaching about 4 nutriments. And the nutriments are what we're consuming. And they're also called foods. So one is edible foods. The other one is like the senses, like everything that comes through the senses is a type of food. It's like content, right? It's literally what you're saying, like the information that we're reading, the movies that we're watching, the conversations that we're having. And then consciousness, meaning like what is it that we are giving our awareness to and our energy? Like what is happening internally? What are the thought patterns that we're allowing? The fourth one is volition, which means what's your intention? What is powering your actions, right? Is it a wholesome intention or is it an unwholesome intention? And this information is so powerful, but it's also a good reminder to everyone, including myself, that information is going to be information unless we put it into practice, right? We need to actually put it into practice while we are learning everything that we're listening to, all of these healing modalities, all of these practices. Ultimately, they need to be embodied. They need to be acted on so that they can actually create that change, and epigenetics can actually work, right? Like what you said, it's a switch. It's either on and off, and we have that agency when we understand, right? When we learn about these things, we have the agency to say, okay, I have the power to turn this on or to turn it off. And I think that is absolutely beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing about epigenetics and for really bringing this to a practical daily life, because even, talking about the plant and this spiritual ceremonies, at the end of the day, we do this so that in our daily life, we can see the difference, right? And that we can share with other people in a different way, and we can connect and we can love each other more, which is also another part that I love about what you shared. And even though I do have a lot of questions, we are almost like in an hour. We've been talking for an hour. I can talk to you forever, and like my heart smiles. Yeah, my heart smiles every time that you speak, because I resonate so much with everything that you're saying, and I am sure that the way that I'm receiving it, people are going to receive it in the same way. I mean, not everyone, of course. Like you said, we're all different. Every single person is going to resonate with something in a completely different way. But before we start to wrap up, I do have questions about the other side of your company. So the places that you have visited in Peru. So I understand you go to ancient sites, to archaeological sites, and these places hold a lot of energy, and they're not only beautiful, they're also awe-inspiring, because how the heck did this happen? But there's, all of the 99% of things that we cannot see, as you said. Perhaps a lot of them are still in these places. What is your experience going to these sites? Have you had any experience that is like, oh my God, life-changing? Perhaps any of your clients, if you feel like sharing?
That's a great question. This is definitely an energetic hotspot in the world. I think that there are several hotspots throughout the world. They actually call this area of Peru the Sacred Valley of the Incas. Although it's been sacred for far longer than the Inca civilization. The Inca civilization was from the 1200s is when it got started until the Spanish conquest happened in 1532. And by the 1570s, the Spaniards completely took over. So the rise of the Inca Empire was in the 15th century, in the 1400s. And there are a lot of archaeological sites, Inca archaeological sites, that are energetic hotspots. Cusco, right here, was the it was the heart of the Inca Empire. This was also the largest empire in pre-Columbian Americas. So it was a really significant civilization. But the particular sites that I would say are the highest energy hotspots would be, of course, Machu Picchu, Sacsayhuaman, which is these megalithic Inca stones. There's so much mystery to the Incas about how they were able to construct with these huge limestone stones. And everything fits perfectly without the use of mortar. They didn't have any type of cement or anything. It was just like jigsaw puzzled architecture. It's really fascinating. There's so much mystery to the Inca civilization. But there are definitely hot spots. Just a couple weeks ago, I actually went to a very sacred spot that's just outside of Lake Titicaca, and it's called Aramumuru, and it is an interdimensional portal. So I went with these clients that are very much on the spiritual path, and they were the ones that were like, we want to go to Aramumuru. And I was really excited to be able to go and experience this with them, because there are 3 doorways, and you go into each doorway with a different intention. And for me, I felt my body was vibrating. I mean, I felt like I was being hugged by Mother Earth. Like it was an insane connection, and I had some downloads, and I had all these really intense feelings, and that has happened in other sites. Actually, I've been to Machu Picchu 7 times now, I think. Having a tour company, I'm sure I'm going to go hundreds of times, and I probably will never get sick of it, because it's just such a beautiful spiritual experience, and the energy there is just so heightened. So yeah, I've had a lot of clients that have said that they felt different. They felt the energy shift, and it's definitely a very spiritual place, and people can feel the energy.
What an amazing opportunity to be there, experiencing all of that. I've never been to Peru, and it was in my top list until recently that I discovered that I am allergic to ají amarillo. And besides the food, of course, going to visit these beautiful sites, I was like, okay, Peru needs to be in our top 5. And now I'm like, well, I don't know if that's going to be possible. What am I going to eat there? But
there's
anyways,
plenty of food, and we can make sure that we have food without ají amarillo.
I am like so in awe to hear all of your experiences. I absolutely love, these topics that for so long have been mysterious and mystical. Mm-hmm. But luckily, they're becoming more and more, normal, whatever that is, quote unquote normal. And I love that
we're going through a huge shift. We're going through a huge shift in humanity right now. We're changing from 3D consciousness to 5D consciousness, and there is a big shift happening right now. And this is why these sacred medicines are coming to the north. There's a prophecy that I'm not going to get into great detail about, but it's called the prophecy of the eagle and the condor. Basically, okay, so just briefly, there is a prophecy that states that the eagle represents the bird of North America, and the condor is the bird of South America. And the prophecy states that when the eagle and the condor fly together, the world is going to change. There will be more peace. There will be this great awakening. So the eagle represents like materialism, technology, and those type of advancements, whereas the condor and the south represent, connection to nature, connection to self, and just like the more spiritual side of life. So it's when those two those two birds fly together that the world is going to completely change.
I think it's amazing to be able to have access to all of these places that you have a key to these places, and I think it's beautiful. And knowing your heart, I cannot think of anyone better to have a key to these places. So just to wrap it up, I do want to ask you a couple questions that are related to the name of this podcast, The Way of the Heart. Mm-hmm. So what do you think your practices, specifically, plant medicine and spiritual ceremonies, how do you think they are tapping into the wisdom of the heart? And even if you want to say, like, what do you think is the heart? Like, what do you think happens when we connect to the heart?
That's such a great question, because these plant medicines are very sacred, and they are associated with accessing deep insights and wisdom. that is, I mean, you could almost call this medicine the wisdom of the heart, because you are tapping into the deepest depths of your soul. Our heart is our intuition, right? Like, it tells us exactly. I mean, one could also say the gut is your intuition, but to me, one and the same. Our heart knows. Our heart knows the way. And these medicines help with expanded consciousness, emotional healing, spiritual insights, and a really deep connection to nature and to the source. So for me, these medicines are the wisdom of the heart. They're going to show you what it is that your reality is without question. Ultimately, when one experiences these medicines, they receive a lot of insights. That's inevitable. That's something that will happen. If you come and do this medicine, you will receive insights and you will heal. But ultimately, it is up to you to implement them into your everyday life. Because I could have had the visions and felt the feelings and downloaded the thoughts, but I could have done nothing with it. I could have, when the opportunity presented itself for me to move to Peru, I could have said, now's not a really good time. I'm doing great in corporate America. Really glad that that's not this reality, because I'm very happy to be here doing what I'm doing. But, it's up to you to take the steps. But I will say that the medicine, in my eyes, equates to wisdom of the heart. That is exactly what it is.
I love that. The other question that I have is, which I guess we have been speaking to it, what do you think the world needs right now? Like, people, even though we know we're going through this shift, in a way, it's like, what do we need to be prepared for this shift?
Love. Love has come up in every single one of my plant medicine ceremonies. And I will say the majority of people who share their experiences with me, their experiences also are related to love. At least at one point, they realize that we are all just love, and we navigate life either in fear or in love. And we all need love. And it starts with loving oneself. Because if you can't love, in the words of RuPaul, if you don't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else? It's so true, though. You can only love someone and understand someone at the level of your own level of self-love and understanding.
And I love how this came full circle to the way that we started this conversation, specifically with plant medicine, because you shared with us that one of the reasons why you kind of like forgot about religion or any spiritual connection was because you really struggled with like loving yourself. And one of the things that the plant brought to you was this connection again with yourself, which ended up being a connection with everything else. So I think I love that it's full circle. Like, this is also
it still takes work from time to time, but I will say my levels of self-love are through the roof right now, and I love and respect myself, and I admire myself, and I wish that I could have done that for my entire life. I didn't really have a lot of self-love until 33 years old, when I did ayahuasca for the first time, and I realized, like, oh my gosh, I am part of God. I am a divine being. I am this sacred temple. I am just a walking, I'm a soul in a flesh suit. This is just a temporary vessel that my soul is incarnated into to embody love and light in this lifetime. That's why I'm here, is to love and to be loved. That's why we're all here.
Something that I didn't ask before, and my gut is telling me, ask this. You mentioned before that you grew up religious. How is your family dealing or receiving this new connection that you're having?
I was shocked at how supportive my parents were for me to make this move. They have been supportive. I would say that I am the rainbow goat of the family, the black sheep, but I prefer rainbow goat because I'm very colorful. My hair and my tattoos. I'm a rainbow goat in my family, and my beliefs are much different than the rest of my family. It's not a huge topic of discussion because there are very, very different belief systems between my parents and myself, for instance. But I have at least planted the seed, and I do talk to them about it every once in a while, but sometimes it's met with discomfort. And ultimately, the reason why my parents and I even have a relationship right now is because I made them uncomfortable. And basically, when I was not accepted because of my sexuality, I continued to be loving and understanding that they're just a product of their own upbringing, and I am in their lives to help expand their consciousness and to help make them more open-minded people. And I have seen such incredible transformation in our relationship, and little by little it has gotten better. But from the moment that I expressed all my life changes, I was in a 10-year relationship and we were trying to have a baby, and I went from saying, we're no longer having a baby, we're getting separated, I'm quitting my 6-figure job in corporate America, and I'm moving to Peru to run plant medicine retreats and to start a tour company. My parents were like floored because I dropped all of this information on them at once. And I was very surprised by the support. Of course, afterwards, I think that was their initial reaction, was like, okay, well, good. You're going to do great. Good luck. We support you. Afterwards, it was, a little bit like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, Peru's dangerous, which, by the way, Peru is a lot less dangerous than the United States of America. Let's just put it that way. I've never felt so safe in any place in my life as I do here in Cusco. It's very safe here. But yeah, there was a little bit of hesitation, but more than anything, I have been supported by my family, and it makes me really happy. And I think it's all about the timing. Too. It was about the timing in my life. Had I said that a few years before, it probably wouldn't have been received as well. But I'm very blessed. I'm blessed to have the parents that I have, and even though the relationship has been tumultuous in the past, I know that every single one of those experiences happened for a reason, and happened because it was part of my healing journey. I couldn't possibly be the person that I am today if I didn't need to heal from the things that I needed to heal from. I couldn't be here doing what I'm doing and encouraging and inspiring other people to also work on themselves if I didn't have the past that I had. So I wouldn't change a single thing about my life. I wouldn't change anything about my physical discomforts in life, my emotional discomforts. I'm so happy for all of those challenges because they have made me exactly who I am.
I love that. So the last question, which you have already in a way shared your answer, what do you think love is?
Love is the reason why we're alive. Love is anything that is moving in a positive direction. I'm going to give an analogy to you, if you don't mind, something that I thought of a while ago, and I've said it to multiple clients that have come, and they're always like, wow, that's really great. Like, you should put that on a podcast. So I'm going to put this on a podcast. Okay, so imagine that this is a funnel or a martini glass, if you want to call it whatever, okay? This shape, okay? This is life. And at the bottom of this martini glass filter, whatever it is, or funnel rather, the bottom represents when we're born, okay? The top of the glass, let's just say that it's all linear, represents this end would be the worst life possible, rooted in fear, and this side is the best life possible, rooted in love. And throughout life, from the very beginning of life, we are making decisions in every single moment and every single day out of fear or out of love. And it's going to put us closer, depending on what direction we choose, to the worst life possible or to the best life possible. And this top of this martini glass represents the end of life, and there are infinite possibilities of how life can go. But the more that we make decisions rooted in love, the closer we're going to get to the best life imaginable. So I think that love is a decision that we make in every single moment and every single day. When you smile at a stranger, that's an act of love. When you are happy for someone for getting a new job, that's an act of love. You know, like little things throughout every single day can be acts of love. It's not just about like loving a friend or a family member or a partner. Love is everything. Love is why we are here. And the only thing when love is not present that there is fear. Fear is the only thing that blocks us from love. So we just have to think in every single moment, if we can imagine 10 different ways that a scenario can go, focus on the one that is the best, that is going to bring you the most love, the most success, the most happiness. Focus on that. Throw the other thoughts out the window, because when where focus goes, energy flows. So it's just focusing on the most loving, the best decision that you can make in any moment. And sometimes it's really hard. I can say that when I received hate from my father, for instance, when he found out that I'm gay, it was not received well. And I received hate. And what I did was I combated it with love. It was hard. It took me putting my ego aside, and instead of being like, that's messed up that you said that and I don't want anything to do with you, that's fear-based. And instead, I was feeling called to show love and respond in a way that was, Dad, I love you. I'm grateful for everything that you've taught me. And I'm the same person I've always been. I am proud of myself. I'm proud of myself. I hope that one day you can feel that way too. I love you. Thank you for giving me the life that I have. I hope that you can accept me for who I am. I'm just living my life. And it took years, but the more love I showed, the more change I saw in him. And eventually one day he even apologized to me for how he treated me in the past, which I never expected. And what a loving thing for him to do. And although we're not super close, I love my dad and I appreciate him. And it took making conscious decisions to be loving for us to be able to have this relationship. In an alternate reality, when he did not show up in a loving way towards me, I could have written him off and we could have no relationship at all. And that would be a decision rooted in fear. It's all out of love or fear. So love to me is everything. It is what makes the world go round. It's not a saying for nothing.
Thank you so much. What a way to close this with that beautiful share. I am beyond happy that you are sharing your voice here and that people are going to receive your share and your experience as a gift. It is literally medicine, like what you have shared today. So thank you so much for your time, for your generosity. And where can people find you, your company, anything that you want to share so that people can get in contact with you?
Yes, I would love to have all of you here. So as you mentioned briefly, we didn't really talk too much about the tour company, but we are a private custom tour company. It is called Peru Increíble. Peru Increíble, as a gringo would say it. It's incredible without the D. Increíble. If you don't know any Spanish, you know one word now. www.peruincreible.com. On Instagram, our handle is Peru Increíble. We also host the plant medicine retreats under Andean Spiritual Healing. So Andean as in the Andes Mountains, Andean. Spiritual Healing. That's that Instagram handle. The information about our retreats is on our tour company website. There is a tab that is Spiritual Retreats. If you click on that, you will see that there are 3 options for 7 days, 9 days, or 12 days, depending on how many ceremonies someone wants to have. My personal Instagram also, I would love for anyone that is interested in following my personal journey. I am Vibing with Angie. VIBING with Angie, ANGIE. So I would love to have new followers and to interact with you all. And I thank you if you have listened to this entire podcast for sticking with us until the end. And I hope to see some of you here in Peru, including you, Natalia.
I really hope that I can make it and eat all of the food except ají amarillo.
We'll take good care of you. We'll make sure that you're eating everything that's allergy-free.
Thank you so much, Angie. What a beautiful conversation. Thank you to everyone that is listening, watching. And I hope that some of this lands in your heart and helps you make decisions out of love and less out of fear. It is a constant practice. I don't think we're ever going to get it perfect. So thank you so much for all of those beautiful reminders, for all of your knowledge, Angie. And I hope we can have a second conversation, because I'm sure that we'll have a lot more to talk about. So thank you so much.
I would be honored to come and speak anytime. Thank you. I really appreciate you giving me the platform to share.
I really hope that you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. There were so many things that we could have talked about. I wanted to expand on many different topics that Angie touched on. And if there's anything that I hope that you get out of this episode, is that your curiosity maybe still feels very alive. And if there's anything that you are feeling curious about and there's a spark of interest in any of the topics that we touched on this conversation, please, my real biggest hope is that you expand that capacity to explore and to find new ideas and new realities. I think that that is the way in which we can really train our minds to be flexible and our hearts to start to expand. So thank you so much for your time, your energy, and for listening to this conversation. I will see you in the next episode.